Hi, good morning to everyone. I am Chaganti Srinivas and I am working as DDG ICT in NTI PRIT. So I am going to be the host for today's webinar and my colleague Sandeep Bharadwaj, he will be the co-host. Friends, today's webinar is on a very relevant and important topic, that is interoperability in cloud computing, opportunities and challenges. So the webinar has mainly three parts. The first part is the inaugural session. So where we are in, member technology has kindly consented to inaugurate the webinar on a short notice. I am very thankful and grateful to him. The second part of the webinar is the technical session, wherein our expert speakers from across the industry we have roped in. So they will be delivering on topics like cloud computing framework in India by Mrs. Uma Chauhan, then cloud services interoperability standards by Shri Dinkar Sitaram, then regulatory aspects by Mr. Asit Kadyan from TRAI, and lastly, telecom and cloud analytics use case scenarios. So this will be delivered by Mr. Piyush Somani of ESDS. So uh, the co-host for the session, Mr. Sandeep, he will take care of the second part, that is the technical session, as well as the last part, that is the question and answer session. So friends, just a small brief in a couple of minutes. I just want to give basically the growth of cloud computing services in the last decade has transformed the way governments, enterprises and consumers store and process their data and manage their resources. India's cloud computing market is poised for growth and the technology is increasingly being embraced across businesses as well as retail consumers. Cloud computing is a revolutionary technology that has enabled applications such as big data, IoT, and social networking, which have a major impact on the world. So this also includes smart city applications, healthcare, emergency response systems, and next generation telecom networks, which are now adopting cloud technologies. The unique ability of cloud systems to host any service and scale rapidly to any desired level and pay-per-use model are key drivers for increased cloud adoption. Unfortunately, at present, clouds from different vendors are having issues of interoperability, resulting in cloud computing silos. The first important disadvantage of this is vendor lock-in. The second major disadvantage of this is the barrier for developing inter-cloud applications that deliver higher value. Well, MeitY has empaneled cloud service offerings of major cloud service providers for ease of cloud procurement for the government departments. Presently, cloud services from about 18 prominent cloud service providers have been empaneled by MeitY. So if we consider a smart city application, it may be desired to integrate data from different sources such as pollution data or weather data such as rain, etc. with the traffic data. So given that the data is likely to be in different clouds, developing such an application becomes quite complex. One of the examples here is the Passport Office, which took nearly 6 months to develop a simple application that requires to pull data from the police department about the criminal record of a applicant. So due to the importance of developing cloud standards, Department of Telecom has mandated TSDSI, that is the Telecommunication Standards Development Society of India, in 2017 to develop interoperability and portability standards for India. NDCP 2018 has also envisaged the following three strategies for the growth and development of cloud services in India. The first one is evolving and enabling regulatory frameworks and incentives for promoting the establishment of international data centers, content delivery networks, and independent interconnect exchanges in India. Second, enabling a light touch regulation for the proliferation of cloud-based services. And thirdly, facilitating cloud service providers to establish captive fiber networks. Friends, DOT has accepted TRAI's recommendations on the legal and regulatory framework on cloud services. And DOT has again sought recommendations from TRAI on the terms and conditions of registration of industry body, eligibility, entry fee, the period of registration and governance structure, etc. And TRAI has already submitted its recommendations to DOT in September 2020, which is under active consideration by DOT. So with these few words, now I request our Director General NTI PRIT, Shri UK Srivastav sir, to give his welcome address. Just a small introduction of sir. Sir is a very senior ITS officer of 1983 batch. He has got a lot of experience. He has also worked in TRAI and ITU assignments, and he has been a source of great inspiration for all of us and for all of us in NTI PRIT. And for today's webinar also, the topics have been very meticulously chosen, and also the speakers also, the expert speakers from the industry, we have chosen very carefully with the help of sir. Sir, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Srinivas. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the webinar on interoperability in cloud computing, opportunities and challenges. At the outset, I welcome Shri A.K. Tiwari, Member Technology Digital Communication Commission. His presence in the webinars actually is very rare because he is generally extremely busy, and we have approached him on a number of occasions with little success. So I'm very happy that he is present today to inaugurate this very important webinar. So hearty welcome to you, sir, for agreeing to inaugurate this webinar. I also welcome all the eminent speakers. Mr. Srinivas has already named them, Ms. Uma Chauhan, Shri Dinkar Sitaram, Shri Asit Kadyan, Shri Piyush Somani. Most welcome to all of you. And then I welcome all the officers of Department of Telecom headquarters, field units, CDOT, TRAI, academia, industry, TEC, and my colleagues from NTI PRIT. Welcome to you all. This webinar is really the need of the hour. Mr. Srinivas has explained in a lot of details as to why this has become extremely important. All of you know that for companies that undertake the process of cloud migration, the cloud can have a massive impact. This includes a reduction in the total cost of ownership, faster time to delivery, enhanced opportunities for innovation, and so on. And with access to the cloud comes agility and flexibility, both of which are imperative to meet changing customer and market demands. In recent months, companies have been migrating their services and data to the cloud as they adopt to become elastic digital workplaces to deal with an increase in online demand and remote working. For businesses that have already begun the move to cloud computing, they are accelerating a cloud transformation that will lead the way forward in the years to come. So there are a lot of benefits of migrating to the cloud, and it increases agility and flexibility, ability to innovate faster, delivery of immediate business results, simplifying of IT, and so on and so forth. I would not like to go into those details. Mr. Chaganti has already introduced the topic to you, and I'm very happy that he has very carefully structured this webinar and selected eminent speakers who are authority, and they have the best knowledge available in the industry. So I'm sure that this webinar is going to be useful to you all. And like always, as the standard in NTI PRIT webinars. So I once again welcome you all to this webinar. have a good time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for setting the pace of the webinar, and also thank you, sir, for expressing your thoughts and ideas here on this platform. So now I request Member Technology Tiwari, sir, who is the chief guest of today's webinar. Just before sir takes over, just a small introduction about, although all of us know him, but still a small introduction about sir. So sir is working as member technology in DCC, DOT. He is a very senior ITS officer of 1983 batch. And on behalf of NTI PRIT, sir, we are very thankful and grateful to you. You have accepted our invitation, that too at such a short notice. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir, now.
Thank you, Srinivas. Very good morning to UK Srivastavji once again, and all the participants, team NTI PRIT. I'm really, sorry on my part because there was some technical snag in probably my system or something like that actually. It was showing that you are muted by the organizer and it can be unmuted by them only. So somehow UK Srivastavji resolved all these things. I'm really very much happy that NTI PRIT is organizing so many webinars and all these things for last 1.5 years. And during the tenure of UK Srivastavji, in his able guidance, actually in leadership, NTI PRIT is doing many webinars and seminars and courses on many important topics actually, which are very relevant and very useful for the industry, for the Department of Telecom, and for various stakeholders. So I really once again congratulate Mr. UK Srivastav and team NTI PRIT, who are really driving this skill capacity building, actually skill set building in the department and across the industry, and touching very important topics. This topic, cloud computing interoperability. In fact, MeitY is also working actually, and we have to have another some session. Verbally it has already been held with Honorable MOC also, and probably today or within a day or two, because these cloud this thing, data centers and all this, actually they are demanding something more. And MeitY, as I know, that they are working on some policy paperwork, which of course through elder consultation and Department of Telecom will also be in the loop. So with all those, probably something more may come in the near future. Cloud interoperability, which refers to the ability of the system to work efficiently and collaborate effectively across different cloud platforms. So this is emerging as an essential element in enterprise cloud strategy as companies seek to mitigate vendor lock-ins. And as Srinivas has already mentioned, vendor lock-ins is kind of you are logged in a particular cloud, and you cannot interoperate, and you cannot leverage this technology with the use of other cloud. Then it's really a serious challenge actually for the industry. So lock-ins and business continuity and to navigate through fluctuating workloads. This topic, this webinar is going to be very useful actually. Initial cloud environments, what I'm told actually, are unable to keep up with the increasing workloads and functionalities. Enterprises are now exploring multi-cloud operating environments for running their system efficiently and reaching out to a wider customer base. So multi-cloud operating environments offer enterprises a freedom to choose a cloud platform as per their workloads or end user preferences, while maintaining resilience across platforms. In a recent Gartner survey of public cloud users, 81% of respondents said they are working with 2 or more providers. and probably in future, there will be always more than many service providers. So cloud interoperability offers enterprise the freedom to retain their existing cloud investments while augmenting them with the benefits of new age cloud solutions. Through it, though it sounds exciting in theory, it is often challenging to implement owing to the complexities around applications, integration for different cloud environments, and so on. Reliability, performance, and security are the primary enterprise concern for interoperability in multi-cloud environments. And while reliability and performance are essential for maintaining peak system performance, at the same time, security plays a crucial role for industry across different platforms. So cloud interoperability also requires a single cloud management system which can track performance on key metrics and manage workloads across cloud platforms. So efforts are already underway to work around cloud interoperability challenge by industry bodies like IEEE, NIST, ESDSI, our standard body, which the Department of Telecom is interacting on a day-to-day basis. And cloud service providers, they are all working together to develop common cloud standards. So, and whereas the cloud service providers, they are working for developing adapters, APIs, and container to facilitate interoperability across platforms. So multi-cloud strategies today have been reactive in nature, responding to increased workloads and functionalities. However, as system complexity increases, there is a need for enterprise to redefine their cloud strategy. Next generation multi-cloud strategies need to be smarter and more proactive. Enterprise should not only evaluate economies of scale and cost while redefining their cloud strategy, but they should also anticipate future workloads and vendor lock-ins. This can be achieved by following industry standards wherever possible and working with partners to simplify migration, portability, and interoperability. So this can be achieved by following industry standards whenever possible and working with partners to simplify migration, portability, and interoperability. So at the last but not the least, I would like to appreciate and thank Mr. UK Srivastava, Director General NTI PRIT, and his team for organizing this webinar. In fact, NTI PRIT, under the dynamic leadership of Srivastava ji, has organized a series of webinars, as I have already mentioned, and many things. Even I have attended during the Delta series and all these things. I mean, well, the COVID lockdowns were in this thing. So I have already, I mean, I really understand that NTI PRIT is doing a lot actually in this direction for skill development, for capacity build-up, and for policy interpretation and policy reforms and policy guidelines also, because NTI PRIT is working in that domain also. So my best wishes to all the participants. I could see that there were around more than 200 participants, and I'm really sorry that it was delayed for 10 minutes on my account actually. So my best wishes to have this web series webinar very fruitful to the stakeholders, to the participant, and I'm sure that NTI PRIT will organize in future the similar series, similar webinars, similar courses, and seminars for the usefulness of the industry, for the stakeholders, for the benefit of everyone. Thank you, Mr. Srivastava. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really sorry, as you have already mentioned, that actually, yes, sometimes and many times actually, I'm not able to give time for these things. But yes, whenever it will be required, then definitely, because it is part of all this work, and it is nothing that everybody is busy in this department. So I will be there for anything. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words and your wonderful thoughts. So with this, we come to an end of the inaugural session. So first of all, I would like to profusely thank our member technology, Shri Tiwari sir, for his gracious presence in this webinar. Sir, one more thing, sir. I just skipped my mind. Sir, I also request you to declare the webinar open.
Yes. Yes, please continue. It's open.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank member technology, sir, for his gracious presence. And as I said earlier, it was a very short notice that sir has agreed the request from NTI PRIT, and he has joined the inaugural session. Thank you very much, sir, for joining the webinar, and also thank you for sharing your wonderful thoughts and words. So we'll keep in mind whatever you have said, sir. Secondly, I would like to thank DG Director General NTI PRIT, Shri UK Srivastava sir. So as I told earlier, sir has been very, very inspirational to all of us in NTI PRIT. He has been a guiding force to all of us. Every webinar and every topic of the webinar is very meticulously planned with the help of sir, and the best speakers from the industry are chosen for delivering the topics. So thank you, sir. Thank you for your presence in this webinar. Next, I would like to thank TSDSI. So TSDSI has been, very actively involved, and they have been very, very helpful. They have given wonderful speakers for this webinar. So I thank TSDSI for extending all help in this for this webinar. So next, I would like to thank all our speakers for today's webinar. So the first speaker is Mrs. Chauhan. So she is from MeitY. The second speaker is Dinkar Sitaram. He is from CCICI. The third speaker is Mr. Asit Kadyan. He is from TRAI. And the fourth speaker is Piyush Somani. He is from ESDS. So I thank all the speakers for accepting the invitation from NTI PRIT. Next, I would like to thank the training division of NTI PRIT, the DDG training Adir Singhal and his team for providing all the logistic support. Then I would like to thank all the participants. I can see more than about 260, more than 270 participants are there already logged in. So I thank all the participants who have joined today. The participants are from DOT headquarters, TEC, DOT LSS, TRAI, MeitY. Then we have these cloud service providers, ISPs, various telecom industry associations and bodies, and also all the officers of NTI PRIT. Then lastly, I would like to thank my own team from ICT. So my officers, Mr. Sandeep Bharadwaj, who is the co-host of today's webinar, Mr. Deepak Sharma, and Mr. Siddharth, who is ADG ICT, for they have put in a lot of efforts for successful in this webinar, for arranging all the speakers, and for communicating with all the participants and all that. So thank you once again. So with this, we come to the end of the technical session. So the next session, the inaugural session. The next session is the technical session. So I now request Mr. Sandeep Bharadwaj to take over from me. Over to you, Sandeep.
Thank you, sir. A very good morning to everyone joining the webinar. I am Sandeep Bharadwaj, Director ICT at NTI PRIT. On behalf of PRIT and DOT, I extend a very warm welcome to all the participants, our eminent speakers in the webinar, and the distinguished guests gracing the occasion. We are now moving to the technical sessions of the webinar. So as already told by Srinivas sir, there will be 4 technical sessions of around 30 minutes each. The first session is on cloud computing framework in India by Ms. Chauhan. Senior Director from MeitY, followed by session on Cloud Service Interoperability Standard by Dr. Dinkar Sitaram from Cloud Computing Innovation Council of India. Then we have third session on regulatory aspect in cloud computing by Sri Asit Kadyan, advisor TRAI, and the fourth session will be on telecom and cloud analytic use case scenario by Sri Piyush Somani from ESDS Software Solution Limited. The webinar will be concluded with the question and answer session. Participant may ask the question by raising their hand or writing in chat box, and one by one their question will be taken. Let us now start the first technical session on cloud computing framework in India by Chauhan, Senior Director from MeitY. Before I request Madam Chauhan to take over, let me introduce her to the audience. Ms. Chauhan is Scientist G and Senior Director MeitY E-Governance Group, Government of India. She is having more than 39 years of experience. Presently, she is handling matters related to cloud computing and data center policy, National Center of Geo-Informatics, National E-Government App Store, India Portal, National Scholarship Portal, Accessibility and Website Quality Testing, Open Source Policy, Collaborative Application Development and Open Source Initiative in MeitY. So, as Madam Chauhan may not be available for full duration of webinar, the question related to this session may be taken just after this session if they are queried. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, please share your screen and open your camera.
Full screen replace my height. Yeah, can you see the screen, please?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. So here in MeitY, I am handling the cloud computing initiative for the last, around 9 years. And MeitY has, implemented a scheme known as state data centers in year 2008. So I handled that scheme also in MeitY. So I can just assure you that for last 12 years, I have been working in the core area of data centers and cloud in MeitY. And I have seen a lot of change start in these last 10 years. There was a time when we didn't used to use private cloud service providers for hosting our applications on data centers even. That is why we had set up government data centers in each state and UT, which are completely 100% in control of government, and so that all the state governments can host their applications in their respective data centers. So after that, in 2014, actually, when we saw the cloud technology, and the virtualization technology taking over, MeitY also thought that we should set up some system we should bring out to ease out the government departments for onboarding to the cloud services. So in 2014, MeitY has, set up a task force. MeitY had set up a task force in 2013, and we had come out with a strategic direction paper and implementation roadmap, and a working group was also set up for recommendations for cloud adoption. So these two groups were set up so that they can, we can see the recommendations of this working group, and based on these recommendations, MeitY can start working. So based on the task force report on strategic direction paper, MeitY had, set up the first government cloud in 2014 over the NIC data centers. They are still, the number has been increased, and we have a lot of national data centers now. Around 4 are in operation and 2 more are in pipeline. Then in 2015, we had, engaged NISG to bring out, to set up an agency in MeitY, so that we can use that agency to, set up, bring out lot of service providers in the private sector to give services to the government departments. Then in 2016, we set up a audit criteria working group so that the audit of these service providers can be carried out by MeitY. And since then, we have been going for empanelment of CSPs. And right now, we have around 18 cloud service providers empaneled with MeitY. Our cloud management office has also set up, an ecosystem for cloud proliferation in the government. And if you go to our website, which is meity.gov.in, you will find around 10 to 11 guidelines which have been published by MeitY for users of cloud in the government sector. So I request all of you to please go to that web page on GI Cloud Meghraj, because our initiative has been named as GI Cloud or Meghraj, and go through these guidelines. They will help you in onboarding cloud in a systematic manner. Now, these guidelines basically include, planning to migrate to cloud. You can afresh start with cloud, or you can migrate your legacy applications to cloud. So all that, those guidelines are available. Then we have also made our services available on Cloud Gem platform. We have created a cloud service bouquet, and this bouquet of services is available on Gem platform. We are also doing capacity building for cloud. We have an organization named as National E-Governance Division in MeitY, through which we are creating capacity building programs. If any organization, any government department is willing to get conducting some, dedicated capacity building programs for cloud, you can just send a request to me. We will get a program done only, specifically for that department for cloud, on cloud. Then we have some guidelines we have published on cloud security, procurement. We have also published the model service level agreement, model contract, and the best practices on cloud security as well as on disaster recovery. So I think end-to-end cloud enablement and the ecosystem we have set right within MeitY, through MeitY, and there is, a comfortable cloud ecosystem set up by MeitY, which can be used by government departments. The only thing is the awareness and the capacity building part we have not been able to do in a, in a large manner, which we are going to basically start in a big way now. But I think this should have been done long before. But we thought till, service providers are available, the capacity building will be of no use. So we first thought that first we should empanel the service providers, bring these services on the GEM platform for the users to use, and then we should do the capacity building of the departments. And the empanelment window for empanelment of cloud service providers is still open. So all the new CSPs who want to onboard to this platform, who want to get empaneled with MeitY, can do so as and when they want. Now, these are the various activities which I have already talked about in detail. I think this is only for the, the departments to know what MeitY has done so far. I have already talked about in the first slide. Now, these are the various service providers which have been empaneled by MeitY. In the first round, we had 10 CSPs empaneled: the BSNL, Control-S, SciFuture, ESDS, IBM, Microsoft, NetMagic, SIFI, Tata, WebWorks. And then in the second round, we empaneled 3 more CSPs. Then in the third round, we came to 12. Then 6 more were empaneled in 20. And 21, the fifth round is in progress. So you can see we have the major service providers in cloud, like, Google, IBM, MeitY, Oracle, Pi, Realtel. We have lot of, the PSUs, number of PSUs, and we have number of multinational service providers, and then we have a number of domestic service providers also. So it is a mix of all kinds of cloud service providers available today who are there to give cloud services to the government departments. So you all can make use of these service providers in addition to the NIC cloud. NIC cloud is already there, and there is a policy for allotment of resources by NIC cloud. I think it is available on their website. Up to 10 or 20 VMs they give free of cost, but if in case you require more than that, more VM machines than that, then you have to pay. Actually, it's not free. The NIC cloud services are also not free for big projects. Now this is the pre-qualification criteria for empanelment. I think the the audience here are basically, as I understand, would like to understand what are the benefits of cloud, why we should go to cloud, and what are the various options given by MeitY for onboarding to cloud. So if you see under the basic cloud services, number one, the cloud, for legacy applications, you have to do the total cost of ownership evaluation first. If you have already signed a contract with the service providers, then you should calculate that if the contract is already valid for say next 5 years, then you should not immediately thought of going to the cloud. So you should do a planning that okay, when your contract ends, in a sequential manner, you should try to onboard to the cloud. And cloud does a lot of savings in the cost for many of the services where your own infrastructure is not being optimally utilized. So the key is optimal utilization of the infrastructure. In case you want optimal utilization of the infrastructure, you should go to cloud. And secondly, for disaster recovery service, cloud is very beneficial. It saves a lot of cost. And for your big projects, for new projects, you should always, try to move to cloud so that it is, auto scalable, because many of the applications, which have a varying load, the static load application, the applications which have a static load, still cloud will not be saving a lot of cost. But for projects which require, which have a, loads are varying. So for peak loads and all that, whenever it is seasonal loads are there, cloud benefits in a big way. So that, suppose in the static, in a normal manner, you are using only like, say 40 to 50 VMs for execution of that project. So during the peak load, you may require 200 virtual machines. So you can just scale up during, for a period of say 5 days, 6 days, or 10 days. So for whatever period your load has increased, and you can again come back. So this is called auto scaling. So you can just come back to the normal load after your work is finished. So that is the elasticity is the I think most important advantage of using the cloud. Now these are the basic cloud services which MeitY has empaneled. The compute services, there is a category of compute services. We have storage services, we have database services, network services, security services, and support services. Now this category of services is, is listed on GEM platform along with managed service providers. We have also empaneled the service provider which we have empaneled provide their services through managed service providers. So the managed service provider criteria also we have given to GEM team, and GEM team has registered a number of managed service provider to give cloud services to the government departments. Then we have advanced cloud services empaneled with MeitY. So these are also the various services, like in advanced we have containers, we have managed databases, then we have security services, the advanced services in the secure cloud security, and monitoring services, analytics services, office productivity suite also is a part of the services. So these are the advanced services which have also been empaneled by MeitY, and they are also available on GEM platform. Now it is up to the departments if they want to use a GEM platform for procurement of services. They should write their scope of work very clearly, and they should know that basically how their data should be secured. You cannot say that security of the data is the only responsibility of the cloud service provider. Security is a shared responsibility. Some of the controls, the basic, the infrastructure which is being provided by the cloud service providers is the responsibility of the CSP. But the infrastructure which you are using or taking from the cloud service provider, to secure that infrastructure, you have to put the specific controls, the specific security tools in place to safeguard that infrastructure. So that is the responsibility of the department. Though our empanelment gives you a lot of comfort in that manner, that we have already asked these service providers to ensure that the data will be guaranteed to reside in India only. So all these service providers, whatever servers from which these services are being provided, or the data, the data of the customers will be residing in the servers, in the database servers, are guaranteed to be in India only. So the localization norm, basically, which is, is a very important part of the data protection bill, which is in draft stage of MeitY, by MeitY, we have already, as a part of the empanelment, have already make it mandatory, because going to cloud of the private service providers, we have to put all these safeguards in place. Then there should not be any legal framework outside Indian law, which, which can, like give them liberty to give the data of the government clients to, the firms which are, operating in US. And there are number of acts in the cloud, like Cloud Act is there. Maybe somebody can ask for data of any government customer. So that is why we have asked them to give an undertaking that only legal frameworks outside Indian laws will be applicable, and no other legal framework outside the Indian law will be applying to these service providers. Then there are a lot of guidelines which are published by CERTIN and MHA and many other government departments regarding the safeguarding of the data and localization of the data of the Indian government departments. So that also, for that also, the we have to comply with the guidelines and standard. The service providers have to comply with the guidelines of the all the government departments, published by the government departments. So that undertaking has also been given by these service providers, and it is a continuous compliance, because as and when a new guideline is published by any government entity, they have to comply to that. Then CSP shall be responsible for the privacy and security of the data. CSPs need to adhere to the guidelines and acts published by. No data should be shared to any third party. And an undertaking from empanel CSP on the IT Act, Section 43A of the IT Act. So there are many such, even the security set of tools what is to be provided by these service providers, that is also a part of the empanelment. So this is the empanelment process, what, we undergo. They submit the application to us, it goes for STQC audit, and after we are satisfied in all respects that they are complying to the requirement of the government, then only they are given the award letter. And once they get the letter, within, I think, within 3 months, they have to onboard to the GEM platform. If they don't onboard to the GEM platform, their compliance does not get completed. Then every year, every CSP has to undergo a surveillance audit. And then empanelment duration, the duration for which we empanel these service providers is for 3 years from the date of award of the empanelment. Now, these are the some of the technical and global compliances which these service providers have to adhere to. ISO 27001, 27017 regarding PII, 27018, 20001 regarding O&M, and then the build of the data centers. There is a uptime certification which gives tiering certifications to the data centers when they are built. So we have in our empanelment have said that these should be all above tier 3 and above data centers will be empaneled by MeitY, not below that, or rated 3 or tier 3 above that. Then data center facility should be in India, and all these guidelines, which I just talked about. And the availability of the cloud services is 99.5%. It's the minimum which is to be guaranteed by these service providers. Now, if we categorize these service providers, there are government PSUs, BSNL, RailTel, ITI, NIC, National Cloud. I think you can give on nomination basis also, you can award your projects to the PSUs, but due approvals have to be taken by your own departments for that. because if you see the rates, because this is only technical empanelment what MeitY has done. It is not a financial rates empanelment we have not done. So for some some maybe critical requirements and where you don't have time for doing a open bid process and all that. In some cases, in some specific cases, you can use PSUs. And then but you must do a fair bid process on GEM, because we have not put any bifurcation between the multinational and the local. All the companies have the 100% equal right of participation in all the bids. So we will be coming about the local class 1 class 2 suppliers. We are working on that criteria, and maybe after some time we will be putting up these service providers in class 1 or class 2 categories, which is a mandate from DPIIT to promote Indian requirements, to promote the local suppliers within India. Now, these are some of the departments who have used our services. There are number of departments, number of universities, number of MeitY associated organizations, the number of PSUs of Government of India, and lot many even central government ministries and departments who are using the cloud services of MeitY and panel CSPs. Like you can see, it's very big in number, because some of the information may not get, but whatever information we have got, I'm showing here. So it's a big number. And I think cloud has become the default option, de facto option for the users, because the pain you suffer in first in procuring your own infrastructure, then managing it, giving AMC contracts to the service providers, and after a period of say 5 to 6 years, you have to refresh it again. You go for the reprocurement, and or you have to another RFP, to another agency you have to bring, and the migration process, and even the when you a new person takes over that project, the smooth transfer of the project does not take place, and lot of issues are there. Even that can happen even in cloud, because cloud duration also can be around 5 years, 6 years. I think maximum it can be as per GFR, I don't know, 10 years or so. But still in cloud also you may have to migrate. But I think it has to be written very well in your RFP that your contract is for these many years, and after that you may have to go for rebid, and the current service provider has the mandate to migrate it successfully to the next service provider, whosoever will take over under the new contract, so that your migration is smooth. So that is where the interoperability issue comes. There should not be any issues of transferring from one service provider to another. I think there we have to see that whenever you sign up with the service providers, this fact, this part has to be written very well in your RFPs. Exit management, how will the exit management will take place after your contract is over, and how does the migration takes place to the new CSP. So both these responsibilities have to be made a part of your contract. So that is very important. And when you write your RFP, I think MeitY has published some model RFPs. You should use those model RFPs for writing your contracts for the cloud service providers also. But MeitY is always there. You can contact MeitY for any of your such requirements. We have a cloud management office here, which has got an email ID named as cmo@meity.gov.in. You can always drop an email to we people, and we are there to help all the government departments in adoption of cloud. So this is analysis we have done. We have 3 deployment models. We have a public cloud, then we have a virtual private cloud model, and then the third model we have is government community cloud. So the virtual public cloud and the virtual private cloud has fixed menu of the fixed services there, which are published on their website, and the users can use them. And there are a lot of options to create a virtual private cloud out of that their public cloud, and you can make it as secure as you want by using the tools and the offers made applicable in that virtual private cloud, and you can use the pay as you go model. So, and you can save a lot of money, and but you have to write your RFPs and contracts in that manner. So I think writing RFPs for cloud is also an art. So because you should always ask your MSP to take payment from you on the actual billing, being charged by the service provider, and not on the MSP billing. Means you should ask for the actual bills, because it's a pay as you go model. So you should always ask your service providers to provide you the actual bills of the pay services used by you after you have onboarded a CSP. So I as the infrastructure as a service. So the three cloud deployment models are public, VPC, and government community cloud. The government community cloud is a very important model for the government departments for larger projects, where the most of the 70 to 80% are you are going to use infrastructure as a service. But in case of GCC, you cannot have SaaS services being there from the of these service providers. But in case of VPC, you can use the SaaS services, state of the art SaaS services for AI, data analytics, for all the advanced technologies. But in GCC is like cloud only, where you have the infrastructure storage, and maybe some homegrown SaaS services of yours, or but you will not have all the SaaS services which are available in the public cloud or the virtual private cloud. So that balance we have to keep. But we are thinking of bringing out another model, which is GCP, government cloud platform, which will be set up by the private players like a public cloud, but it will be owned by government. Means it will be with the strategic cloud of the government. I think you understand that it will be like a state of the art public cloud of private rate, but it will be owned and run by government. So that is I think it's a futuristic model. And you can go for hybrid clouds also, like you can use NIC and one of the cloud service providers cloud to give you the services, so that you can keep your data with NIC cloud, and you can perform the computing or the processing part on the higher private service providers cloud. Or you can have a multi-cloud model based on the some of the latest technologies like Kubernetes and Anthos platforms of Google. You can, I think you can make a multi-cloud model on the cloud, where you can have services of 3-4 service providers you can use. And I think it is possible today. We have discussed with all these CSPs, and lot of PSCs have also being done on this. And whenever you have a big requirement and you have a multi-cloud requirement, I think you can call few CSPs out of them, panel CSP, discussions with them, and then you can build your model or the scope of the work to get your application get going on cloud service providers. If you see the cloud service models, we have 3 service models. I think this is a very basic one which should have been taken on the first slide. This is infrastructure as a service, then platform as a service, and then software as a service. This is the basic cloud service models of cloud. I think most of you must have been aware of it, because cloud is not old technology now. It is already 10-year-old technology. I think you are all aware. And then if you see the uptake of these service providers, 43% or states are services are using the services of these cloud service providers. Central government 35% and PSUs 20% are using the cloud services of these service providers. Sandeep, do I have some more time?
Sir, how much more needed, ma'am?
See, I have lot many slides, but I think I have covered the basis of the ecosystem set up by MeitY.
Okay, ma'am.
I can finish here also, because this is all the impact of empanelment. And MeitY, actually, the technology is a definitely cloud technology has to be taught in a, I think in a very big way to the departments. And that can be, taken care of by these CSPs of ours, You can call them, you can have sessions by them being done for these departments. You can call us, we do capacity building programs. But the ecosystem which MeitY has set up is very important because it has enabled the government cloud department, government departments to onboard the cloud in a very big way. So I think that is where MeitY's role, MeitY plays a very big role. So I would like to stop here, and if you have any questions, I can take it up now.
Thank you, ma'am, for very informative session covering this cloud computing scenario in the country and various initiatives of MeitY regarding cloud service and empanelment of CSP. As I have already told that madam may not be available for full duration. So if there are questions, they may raise hand or write on chat. Right now, one question has come through chat, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
That officers and general public are using Gmail, Yahoo Mail, WhatsApp, etc., and data is going outside our country. What is approach of government, public MeitY to address?
See, MeitY has already issued a guideline that no government official will use email other than NIC. There is already a guideline. But still, departments are deviating, though MeitY is not taking any action. But basically, it is wrong. When a MeitY guideline is there, it needs to be adhered to by all the government departments and its entities. I think that is not MeitY actually is not checking on the compliance, but already it is mandated. There is a guideline by MeitY.
Ma'am, also please unshare your screen.
Yeah.
Anyone else who want to ask any question? और आया है? इसका नाम Mr. Shubham want to ask. You can unmute and ask. Mr. Shubham.
Yes, Mr. Shubham, what's your question, please?
Please ask. Mr. Shubham, please ask your question.
You can go to the next one then.
Mr. Tarun Kalra.
Yes, Tarun.
How are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, my question. Yes, ma'am, my question is regarding edge cloud. Now, with 5G coming in, there's going to be a huge proliferation of edge-based applications. So, is MeitY working towards setting standards for edge cloud as well? And what's your view on that?
Yeah, actually, I think CDN service is already an empaneled service under the advanced service bouquet of ours. Yeah. As a service, but other things also, I think we are already studying about the software as a service. Lot of services we are studying. So maybe the SaaS part you are talking.
No, I'm talking of the edge data centers and the edge cloud.
Edge data centers actually under the empanelment you are saying.
Yeah, so as part of edge data centers, there's going to be a lot of edge clouds which will come up now. So we are also
that is actually as a part of our policy. We are going to come out with a data center policy. Yeah. And we have already included edge data centers for in the policy. Okay. We have already done that. So I think uses of edge data centers also will be promoted by MeitY, but we are just working on that.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Shubham, you can ask question now.
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. I was not able to speak before. So, ma'am, my question is that with public PPP models in place almost everywhere, it's become a new normal. Like, what are the data security standards applicable for the private players who are collaborating with government departments?
For the private players, so that
Yes.
is where our RFP comes into picture. See, we have a RFP for empanelment, which I have already presented. You know, some slides I have shown in my this thing presentation. There are, you know, a lot of requirements which we have published. So there is a tool set, security tool set is there. They have to, you know, minimum security they have to keep, and the underlying the infrastructure which from which the cloud services are being given. So that has to be complete. Security has to be given by the cloud service providers.
Yes,
And
ma'am, that I got it. It's about we discussed about CSPs before. I'm saying that if there is a PPP model happening between a private player in say construction project, and if there are some or a defense project, and if there are data exchanges, what are the security standards applicable to that private player in the projects which government department is conducting?
I think, yeah. Vikram will answer this. Vikram,
probably that is something that we'll have to analyze. It's just in the initial phases. You know, we have thought about creating a triple P model, but again, going through all the standards, how the data flow would be happening, what kind of control would the CSP or the operating agency has. We'll have to analyze, and according to that, all the controls will be finalized.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Thank you.
okay. Any more questions?
Ma'am, there are 2-3 questions in chat. I'll go through one by one. One question query from Suvendu Chakravarti. Please like to answer, ma'am. It may be taken at the end. Ma'am?
Yeah.
There was question from Mr. Suvendu. Kindly suggest the security framework, especially for public cloud and hybrid cloud. Will you like to answer, or it may be taken at the end?
No, I can answer whatever we have done. Actually,
I think so. So, Mr. Suvendu, let other speakers.
No. I am saying I can answer it as per what work we have done. See, we have prepared a risk assessment framework for cloud, under which we define that what type of application should go to what type of deployment models of cloud. Like what type of applications can go to public cloud and what type of applications can go to the GCC or NIC. It is very clear. See, there are MHA guidelines in this regard. So the applications of some critical departments need not go to cloud at all, which come under the top secret and secret category. They should always run on the isolated networks or their homegrown data centers or so. And the other 3 categories, which are low impact, medium impact, and high impact applications, they can be like on public cloud and GCC. GCC is basically a cloud created only for the government departments. No other client can use that model. So I think GCC model is a better model for critical applications, and your applications or the data which is public, that can go to public cloud. So this type of framework we had prepared, though we have not published it. But if anybody asks for our advice, we generally follow the MHA guidelines. So MHA guidelines are there for documents. The same applies to the data. Basically, those are the basic guidelines for all the government departments to follow. Soon we are coming with the data officers in each ministry and departments. I think there is a framework which was shared by MeitY. So that there will be data officers in each ministry or department. So they will be responsible for classifying their data in what category it falls, the category of the data. So based on that categorization, the corresponding deployment model can be used by the departments.
Thank you, ma'am. As 2-3 more questions are there, but as we are running out of time, so thank you, ma'am, for your nice presentation.
Thank you so much.
Move to our second session. Thank you, ma'am. So we will move on cloud service interoperability standard by Sri Dinkar Sitaram.
मैं तो निकल गई क्या?
From CCICI, a portion of Mr. Dr. Dinkar Sitaraman is the chair of the Cloud Computing Innovation Council of India working group that is working with DOT and TSI developing cloud. He is currently working on an interoperability testbed that would create an open interoperable multi-cloud for India. He is author of 2 books, and out of that, one book is on cloud computing called Moving to the Cloud, Developing Apps in New World of Cloud Computing, published by American Elsevier. He is also author of over 20 patents and 66 publications, has over 5,000 citations to his work. Over to Dr. Dinkar.
Thank you very much, for the introduction. So just one small thing. Unfortunately, due to some security changing here, I had to quit the meeting momentarily and log back in. So I'll just rejoin in 1 minute, if that's okay.
Okay.
Can everybody see my screen? Can everybody see the presentation?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I think Sriyasi in his introduction had referred to this TSDSI, the CCICI joint task force, and which is chartered to work on cloud interoperability standards. So I'll give a brief overview of that, lasting for about 15 minutes, and then turn it over to Satish, who is also a champion of this initiative, for another 15 minutes on this. So I'll talk about 4 things. Why do we need standards? Then I'll review the existing standards. I'll give a brief overview of what we've put together as being the foundation for the standards. And finally, in the Antarmega project, how we are planning to take that forward. So I think why we need standards, this has been very well addressed by Srinivas ji and the other distinguished speakers, Tiwari ji and Ms. Chauhan, who are there earlier. But I'd like to add a couple of points. So first of all, one argument that's frequently made is that you cannot have interoperability in the internet because of the nature of the technology. So suppose, for example, you have one cloud company or one messaging company. So as one of the messaging companies gets more and more customers, it will tend to drive the others out of business. So in internet, you can only have 1 or 2 companies which will be silos because they will kind of dominate the market. This argument, though, is not quite correct. If you take a look at WhatsApp, for example, I'm just picking WhatsApp as an example, not that I have anything against WhatsApp. It is able to dominate the messaging market because of its closed APIs. If there was true interoperability, then you could have access to multiple messaging apps to WhatsApp via multiple messaging apps and access multiple messaging apps via WhatsApp. So I just made this point to bring home the importance of interoperability. If you do not have interoperability, then what you will have is that in every internet market, you will have 1 or 2 dominant players whom you cannot control. And there'll be no competition, which is not good for the customer. So you need interoperability to sort of democratize the market and allow competition. I think Srinathji already talked about why you need to prevent vendor lock-in. And in fact, NIST, which is the US government cloud standards body, they have said that interoperability is a key requirement for the US government cloud. Of course, this has not happened as yet, but they say that this is needed. About interoperability standards, again, this was covered very well by Srinivasji and Tiwariji. I just want to make one point over here, and that is, so we have empaneled a number of service providers, but for example, there may be a healthcare application running in one cloud and a pollution application running in another cloud, and you may want to merge the two. Now, obviously, these would need to share data. And one question is, how will the data sharing be accomplished securely? So health data is very sensitive. And how do you make sure that if it is shared with data to another cloud, how will it be managed with the same security level that was there in the home cloud? So this is a data management problem, and there's no standard for it. For example, there may be need to know kind of restrictions and so on and so forth. So right now what is done is, of course, this is thrown to the application. The application is told that if you are importing health data, then you need to manage it securely. But obviously, it is desirable to have an automatic infrastructure to make sure that data management is done securely, so that when data is moved between multiple clouds, it's not necessary to rely on an application developer to make sure it's handled securely, but there's some cloud infrastructure to make sure that the data is handled securely. So this would apply even in things like smart cities. There's so many applications where you need to share data between multiple clouds, and we don't have some unified way of data management with regard to security. So looking at all of these things, as Srinivasji had mentioned, there was set up a joint task force to develop cloud interoperability standards between CCICI and TSDSI. I'm just flashing over here the participants in that. So the only comment I'd like to make over here is it contains a very diverse number of people, people from government, people from ESDS, it's a CSP, IDRBT is a research institution, and from academia, from ISC, and also from industry. So this was a very broad-based group which tried to look at this question of what are the cloud standards that we needed. So first thing the task group looked at was, are there already existing standards and which allow for this? So first thing we looked at was ISO, IEC 19941 and related standards. So this is not a standard in the sense that we understand standards, that having APIs like TCP/IP defines certain APIs and certain message formats and so on, which must be there. In the ISO document itself, it says that their major objective was to establish a common vocabulary that is more precisely define what is interoperability. And for this, they developed a facet model. So I've given an example of a facet model over here, which is their facet model for data portability. So they say that if there's data portability, there are three aspects of facets to be considered. One is the syntactic aspect, one is the semantic aspect, and one is the policy aspect. The policy aspect, of course, what I referred to when I talked about data management and so on and so forth. And they've given examples of standards which can satisfy these requirements, but they're not mandated any standards. So we can consider ISO as being targeted towards establishing more precisely what is interoperability, and also as giving a survey of existing standards, a useful survey of existing standards which can be developed. The second thing which we looked at, so these are the major ones. We looked at IEEE NIST P2302. So this was originally just an IEEE initiative, but then went to P2302 as well. So if you this is an architectural approach, and it has not yet gone to the level of APIs. And I don't know if they would do that. So this is an architectural approach which I'll illustrate over here by look at this diagram. So suppose you have a user in regulatory environment A, which is essentially cloud A, and he wants to do some action. Say, for example, create a container or VM or something. Then he would send a message to the broker, which would discover local and remote resources where he could find out whether resources are available in cloud A or in regulatory environment B, which is cloud B, or regulatory environment C, which is cloud C. Then, depending on the model, he could either send directly a request to Cloud C and satisfy his operation, or he could, it could go via the broker. So IEEE NIST P2302 is like a architectural standard. Then we also looked at the ITU level of standards, it's a huge number of them. And basically, these are requirements and descriptions of test cases. So ITU is looking at the question of how do you test interoperability, and they're given English language descriptions of test cases which can be used to test interoperability. So it is not like software or something that can be used. It is more like the requirements and English description of how do you test for interoperability. So now I'll move. So I think we've talked about why interoperability standards are needed to prevent vendor lock-in and how we have a task force for that. And also looked at the ISO, IEEE, NIST, and ITU standards. Then I'll go briefly about how the task force went about identifying the relative standards, the standards that we needed. So this has, so we looked at a number of India relevant use cases. And as I mentioned, there's a very diverse number of people who are part of the task force. And so each member was asked to contribute use cases which they thought were important for India. I have put over here the diagram of one use case which is important, which is the legacy use case. How do you interface? Because all departments will have legacy data centers. How do you interface them to the cloud? If you look at the use case categorization, there are a few in hybrid cloud or enterprise, one in smart city, multiple telecom cases, and one analytics use case also. So the enterprise use cases include something like Tiwari was referring to. So he was saying that if you have these multiple hybrid clouds, how do you guarantee performance of these clouds? So we have identified this as a gap, and we have a proposal as to how this can be done. Essentially, in the messages that are being sent to perform the operations, each cloud will put its performance information so that when the final message is received, you can get a complete. So if the operation goes to requires multiple clouds A, B, and C, say suppose you're running an application which is across multiple clouds, which is say integrating health and pollution data, then each cloud will put its reference, will put its we're defining a standard by which each cloud can put its performance in. So that is the kind of thing. So here is another example of interfacing legacy data centers to cloud. So once we had these use cases, from that we derived the standards that we needed. So I'm giving a more complex example over here, which is an example for child development, where in the edge cloud, you're continuously collecting data about the cloud. Then it's being fed to a cloud service for analytics. And then the third-party analytics service also which you need. So what are the standards we need? So first of all, there are data security standards. You have things like TLS for exchange of data, data encryption. You may also want HC Mano because some networks may be secure and some networks may not be secure. So for example, particularly say if it's international and you don't want the data to go to certain companies, so you may want the network function virtualization to allow you to control the routing of the packets. Then, since you're collecting data on the edge cloud, you may be collecting on a mobile device. So then you have various standards for cloud support of mobile devices. So there are those. Then finally, you have a policy-based data access. I've already alluded to earlier. How do you make sure that data can be transferred securely across clouds? That's a gap which you identified, as well as compression and encryption of machine learning models and metadata, because all of these analytics models are there. So essentially, what we did is we took a number of these use cases, and from the use cases, we identified places where there are standards which are already existing and which you can leverage, and also places where there are gaps where we need to come up with new standards. So this resulted in a white paper which we call CIP 1.0. This has been submitted to DOT and TEC, who are sponsors. We've also invited MeitY, TRAI, NIC, STQC, and gotten all the comments back from them, incorporated them. And as part of the Antarmega project, we are now in the process of converting these into normative standards. So in the CIP 1.0 white paper, we've identified the standards that we need, which we can already use, which are already there. And plus, we've identified gaps which need to be filled. And we are in the process of defining APIs to make it into a normative standard. In addition to doing the normative standards, we also want to set up a research and a standards test bed. This again is something which was alluded to by the distinguished speakers in the inauguration. So first of all, the cloud is not a static technology. Cloud is going to continue to evolve, and for example, edge cases and so on and so forth. There could be multiple things, new things which come up. For example, hardware-based security and so on. Additionally, it's, say, for example, IDRBT is trying to define a more futuristic banking and financial system, and that would require different things from cloud. So we have set up a consortium consisting of CDAC, IDRBT, and Indian Institute of Science initially, which has put a proposal to MeitY for setting up a combined research and standards test bed. So there is a research component to this, which the research institutes will be driving, and they will be looking at future standards. What is the future technology coming in cloud, and how do we incorporate that into standards? So that would be the first. That would be one of the components. The second is, if we have a standards defined in the term and the API level, we need a test bed and we need a test cases so that companies can decide, vendors can decide whether they are compliant to the standard or not. So we also asked for funding to develop a test bed and test cases. So we'll have a test bed which allows us to develop test cases for testing compliance, and also the test bed would be also used for research activities to conduct research into clouds. So for one example, I already talked about the example of the futuristic banking solution. Another example would be if you have an edge cloud, then do we want a storage system which spans the central cloud and the edge cloud, so you can move data seamlessly back and forth, so that applications running in the main cloud can access data in the edge cloud and so on and so forth. So that is the kind of thing that we are looking at. So summarize over here, and then turn it over to Satish. So why do we have interoperability standards for clouds? As many of the distinguished speakers have already said, to prevent vendor lock-in and facilitate development of the innovative examples. And there's a task force with a very wide participation to formulate the standards. We have looked at multiple standards, ISO and IEEE NIST P2302 ITU. And we found that they are not standards in the sense that they mandate certain APIs and so on. So then we have come up with our own white paper, which identifies the standards we need as well as the gaps. So this was done by defining important use cases and deriving requirements and standards from these use cases. Now we are engaged in two activities. One of them is to, of course, this white paper has been submitted to various government departments. We've gotten good feedback and we're converting it to nominative APIs. And now, in addition, we are asking for funding for a research standardization testbed. So thanks very much. That is a summary of our activities so far and what we're doing in the future. And let me turn it over to Satish.
So Dinkar, I'll share my screen if you can unshare.
Yeah, I will do that. I will share.
So can you see my screen? Somebody can please confirm.
Yes, yeah.
So the motivation and other aspects have been put in place by the previous speakers. So now the question is, what is the best fit architecture for us from an Indian use case perspective, as far as the interoperability architecture is concerned? So one of the key things that we have converged upon is the broker architecture. We feel this is the best fit for the Indian use case scenario, or in general interoperability scenario. So here you may have a lot of microservices or even conventional cloud applications. But again, the key is that we use either a set of APIs directly or API aggregation gateway. Essentially, this is an API gateway. So once we have identified that this is the overall approach for us to facilitate interoperability, it becomes easier for us to look at certain software patterns that we can use as part of the API aggregation gateway, or even for the APIs that needs to be developed. This is the overall approach from our perspective. Just to give you an example of one use case scenario, there was a recent World Bank funded agri-tech project for the state of Maharashtra. So the kind of data which has to be exchanged is, there is a drone company which is providing images through drones, and that have a different resolution and a storage format. Then you have satellite data, which is both conventional and some new formats which are defined in the satellite imaging forums. Then you have population data, you have census data, you have a lot of these data which needs to be utilized by the entity which is executing this project, and come up with relevant solutions, all the way from water harvesting and water storage objectives to providing facilities, providing advice on the pesticide to use, the fertilizers to use. And there is also a lot of sensor data which will come from telecom, typically telecom vendors. For example, NPK data, the soil nutrition content which comes through sensors and typically gets carried over. An urban IoT network as an example, and that comes and sits in the edge. All of this can be easily addressed. Such an interoperability example, which is an extreme case, can easily be addressed through the architecture that you're seeing here. This is the document in progress that we're talking about. We're more or less done with this, but finalizing the APIs. Let me go straight to certain aspects. There was a question on what happens to edge. So, when we talk about edge, or when we talk about telecommunication network, wireless telecommunication network, because much of the Narban IoT data seems to be, or IoT data seems to be coming from here, which makes it very relevant for smart city, agri-tech, and these kind of use cases, which are of national interest. So 3GPP has defined certain APIs in itself to be able to fit into certain verticals or to accommodate verticals. Now, the architecture that we showed fits in perfectly into this kind of scenario, where all we have to do is provide the interworking APIs or basically make use of the APIs which are provided by the API gateway or go through the API gateway primarily. So I don't want to go through all of this, but I'll come to the so essentially so you have I don't even want to look at this. So essentially we look at the API gateways. This is the solution for us. What is an API gateway? It does quite a few things. This is an example. It does quite a few things. One is, of course, provide a set of management plane. It provides a set of query functionalities where you can say what is the service availability, discoverability, and all those things. The other key aspect is it allows for data translation as well. And that is one of the key aspects. So there are only two key things that we will have to provide. One is the ability to communicate to services on the other side, query services on the other side. The other one is now that I know there is a service available, I need to be able to send data to the other side. That means there's a data translation which will come into play. Now the data translation again will have a semantic and syntactic aspects, and that is something which can be embedded in the API gateway, because API gateway is a very well understood architecture, and there are patterns available which can be used to implement the overall interoperability issue. So essentially, interoperability is provided and enforced by the API gateway. Now, when we say API gateway, it naturally does not, one API gateway can be different from another API gateway. Just to make sure that we have our interoperability objectives met, we have certain patterns which we will use within the API gateway, and that is what will make this as a perfect engine for interoperability. So any number of clouds can talk across the API gateway. Now, there are other aspects. Once we have finalized on the architecture and the patterns that we use, it becomes easier for us to implement a lot of other things, like, say, for example, security, other issues. But there are security aspects which are also taken care of by the end application, microservice or a conventional cloud application. This is, in brief, what we are trying to do. As part of normative work, we will also publish the whole set of APIs that we will use and the actual data translator that will be part of the API gateway, because more and more users, when they come in, they may want to add additional data types which can be used within the system. Now, who would be the right entity to implement this? A government or a semi-government or a government-private partnership would be the ideal scenario to implement this, because there is a lot of private-public partnership projects which demands data exchange between clouds. And there are multiple examples, smart city being one of them, and the other agri-tech project which I was mentioning about. So in brief, the overall idea is to use an API gateway as the mode of interoperability, or to enable interoperability between multiple clouds. This is a very straightforward thing from our perspective. What we're trying to do is put in all the details and make sure that the semantics and syntactic aspects are covered, and the exact APIs are taken care of, and especially the security APIs are well documented and put forth by us. I just want to briefly cover very quickly some of the patterns that could go into the implementation of an API gateway. Let me quickly through. The very straightforward design patterns which makes things easier from an implementation perspective. I'll go through a very few of these. Okay, let me just take this aggregator pattern. For example, it is well understood that there is a pattern which is available, which is called as an aggregator pattern. What does it do? It basically enables data aggregation. One of the key aspects which will also have to be addressed in a cloud interoperability issues, the aspect of aggregation of data. You also have atomic data types, but you will also have a lot of aggregated data types because not all clouds will want to exchange data in the raw format because that exposes them to a lot of vulnerability. Their designs and other aspects will be known to the other side in terms of the utility. So those are aspects which will have to be taken into account. So the ideal aggregator pattern is one of the patterns which can go into the API gateway, which we saw. There is another pattern which is called as a synchronous design pattern. I mean, in case you want to have a lot of store and then send, typically asynchronous design. This is something which will have to be accommodated within the API gateway. I don't want to get into more further details. Obviously, it's well understood that now we have an architecture and we understand what needs to be done. We are also in the process of finalizing APIs, the semantic and the syntactic aspects as far as the data translator is concerned, which will also be assisted by one of the patrons. Then we have unique to India is the security related aspects, though the end application still takes care of the some of the security aspects. We will ensure that much of the recommendations from MeitY goes into the design itself. The other final aspect that I want to cover is who will be the nodal entity which is ideally suited to implement such a broker to which every other cloud entity will come and latch onto in a scenario. It would be a government or a semi-government or government private partnership entity. Just like UPI. UPI is one single platform. Anybody who wants to enable gateway, enable payment will just come and latch onto the UPI gateway. I mean, that's simple as that. So we envisage the cloud interoperability platform will also be something like this. There might be multiple cloud service providers who simply have to come and latch onto one of the already installed broker provided by the government and as defined by the TSDSI specification. And that's as far as my presentation is concerned. Thank you. I'll unshare now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dinkar Sitaram and Mr. Satish Jamnagni for very informative session on various initiatives taken regarding interoperability standard for cloud computing and development of the edge. Mr. Jamnagni also touched the architecture and design part. So now we are moving towards our third session, which is related to regulatory aspects in cloud computing by Shri Asit Kadyan sir, advisor TRAI. Shri Asit Kadyan is ITS officer of 92 batch and presently working as advisor quality of services in TRAI. He is having a sound technical knowledge and vast experience in various fields of telecom domain. He is instrumental in bringing TRAI recommendation related to cloud computing. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandeep, for introducing and kind words. So, previous speakers have set the stage for my presentation, and I think first presentation by Uma has set why there are concerns as far as cloud service user is concerned. So that user may be a government or that user may be a private entity, but there may be a concern. So how MeitY is taking care of the concerns of a government user, whether there are similar concerns in case of a private setup or other users who are consuming cloud services. So those points were raised and those are applicable in a wider context. Then subsequently, the interoperability was touched upon, and incidentally, TRAI in its recommendation has requested Department of Telecom to work on interoperability issues, and one reference was made to the TSDSI to work on on this interoperability part. And a few questions have also set the stage for the presentation which I'm going to make. Is that one question, that how edge cloud standards are coming up and why those are important. And second question was related to the how the concerns of a private person or a common man are being addressed with the initiatives. What do we have in case of a government cloud or the RFP or the empanelment, how they will be addressing, or there's something else is required to be done if we want to address the concerns, those concerns. So I will share my screen. Just a minute. Is my screen visible to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So regulatory approach, what we have recommended and why it was important, I will touch upon those aspects. So first question which comes to the mind, is there a need to regulate cloud service providers? So when we have to regulate, if market is functioning well and all the concerns are getting addressed and people are getting what they are supposed to get or they are expecting, then probably there may not be any kind of a regulation. But if there are some security concerns or the consumer concerns are not getting addressed, market is not addressing those concerns, then probably some intervention may be required. But how those interventions will be useful, or how those interventions may have some unintended consequences, we have to look into all those aspects. So I will take one example. Means from a common man's perspective. Suppose I have purchased some space from Google because I am using Gmail or some functionalities from the Google. And I am also an iPhone user, and I have purchased some space on iCloud. And my office, or for my own personal purposes, I have also purchased Office 365, and some space has come along with that Office 365. So I am consuming those spaces. But now, one particular space is getting exhausted, and they are demanding that you expand or you purchase more space. While there is a space availability on other cloud spaces which I have purchased for some other purposes. For example, my Gmail space is getting exhausted, and now I want to use iCloud storage to store my Gmail, or I want to use my Office 365 space for my Gmail, or other way around. So I struggle. I don't find any solutions that I can consolidate all the requirements into a single workspace. And I am ending up by paying separately for different kinds of storage spaces, while that is not the requirement. So market is charging from me more what I am supposed to pay. How to deal with that? And if there are some solutions, if somebody knows, then why people are not aware? So first thing is that whether solution exists, and if solution doesn't exist, what is to be done? And if solution exists, why people are not aware, and how they are not able to solve their problem. So these are the concerns from the customer's perspective. Second, suppose I am a high-end photographer and I purchased some space on cloud and thought that it is a good space and it is a cheaper offering, a good offering. But when I loaded my photographs, which are high quality photographs, those were compressed and stored on some cloud. And when those were retrieved, I discovered that my photograph quality is getting compromised. So it is not same photograph. It doesn't have a same quality. So if quality is getting deteriorated and it is not known to the person who has subscribed the service, and he thought that no, such thing will not happen. So how to take care of those concerns? And probably in this kind of cases, when professionals are working and it is asset for them, that if something gets degraded, so it is they have lost the opportunity and they cannot take those photographs or arts which they have stored on the cloud. Third issue, which may be related to the payment. So I have taken services from cloud, and because of some reason, I couldn't pay. It may be any other, I was on tour and some medical issues were there, or some payment related financial crisis was there, or there was some issue related to the credit card, which was given for regular purchase. So what will happen with my data? I couldn't pay for a few months. What will happen? So there was a default storage and there was the storage which I am using. So if you go and search, you will find that default storage will be available to you. But what will happen? Some service providers are claiming that no, it won't be deleted. It won't be deleted for how many years? For how much time? If that is the case, people will start using it in a different way. So what will happen to that data if I couldn't pay because of some reasons? What is the policy? Whether that policy is the same across all cloud service provider, and whether there is a minimum requirement which they are supposed to meet. And even if some deletion is being made, so which is more important data for me? Entire data may not be having the same importance. So whether the oldest data will be deleted, or the latest data will be deleted, or some other criteria will be put, what policies will be applied, whether there is a transparency and the customer knows that how their data will be dealt when they couldn't make payment, and for how long it will apply. So and it may have a disastrous impact on individuals because their documents or their data may be very much important, and it may be an irreversible loss for them. Another aspect which is related to the quality of service, you expect that cloud services performs as per your expectations. These will remain available, no outages will be there. If outages will be there, they will get restored on urgent basis. But what is the performance? What is the reliability? And how much it is being maintained? Can you figure out that what was the typical performance of any cloud service provider in last 1 year, or last 6 months, or last 3 months? Is that available in public domain? And can you rely that statistics, that it is captured and it is relevant for you? Sometimes that statistics is presented for area or for a time period which is not relevant for you. So quality of service is important for you because I have subscribed the service. And if that performance, either service provider has not declared the performance which they will be offering you, and even if they have declared, how that is being monitored and presented before the customers, or before prospective customers, before taking the subscription. So that is also an important issue which is required to be dealt if we want to protect the interests of the customers. Another important issue which has been dealt by the previous speakers, and that is related to interoperability. In case of mobile connections, we can port our mobile number from one service provider to the another service provider, and certain processes are to be followed. That if I apply for porting, in how much time it will be ported, and what reasons cannot be taken to deny that porting. How service providers will help me, how that can be done smoothly. All those processes are defined. So it is not just about the technical compatibility of data among different cloud service providers. It is also about the process. It is about the timelines. It is about the right of the customers, which is to be taken care of when one wants to port. And this porting is more challenging than mobile number portability in terms, because I have a huge data. How to transfer that huge data, huge volume of data from one telco to the other? Even if that data structure and other things are same, means there is a cost. And I have to ensure that it is transferred without any loss. So I am sure that entire data is available in a same form and same quality. There is no compromise of quality when transferring from one type of a format to the other type of a format. And when I am migrating from one kind of environment to the other kind of environment, there will be a similar kind of a performance as far as my data is concerned. And as previous speaker mentioned that now multiple cloud is possible, and services can be used from multiple clouds. So orchestration of services working from different service providers, and how that will be taken care of. So interoperability is much more complex and nuanced in cloud. And if you think that what cloud is doing is migrating from monolithic architecture to architecture of microservices and containers, and that brings flexibility, scalability, reusability, and now you can get those services in more cost optimal manner, and performance may be better. But when things are getting broken down in a smaller and smaller things, law of entropy applies. So more disorder is there. So it is more challenging to align and to these different entities or different pieces, and they work together, and they work in a coherent and a concerted manner to deliver service to the end user. So it is always evolving, and it is more challenging. So ultimately it should translate into a performance, and it should translate into a seamless experience whenever I migrate from one service provider to the other service providers, or I use services from multiple cloud service providers. So it is not just about the exchange of data. It is also about the processes which are involved in this, whether it is an automation process, or it is an orchestration process, or it is a learning framework and applying those frameworks in an environment when services are spread across multiple service providers. Another aspect is related to the build shock. So what happens that when I start using cloud computing services, offerings are very good. I think that most of the burden has been will be taken care of by the cloud service providers. So I need not to worry. But they take credit card or beforehand details, and they will charge, and they will present a bill. And I may not be aware that if I am not taking care of many things, then there may be a bill shock. There may be a huge bill because I was not aware and I have not done due diligence to take care of those things that will shoot up. So it is similar like in case of international roaming, and when people were not aware how data is to be consumed when they are roaming internationally. Another aspect which was touched upon by previous speaker and which is important from regulatory perspective is a lawful interception. So data localization is expected to be a good approach when we want to protect country's interest. But we need to think more deeper, because just by holding data closer to your chest doesn't mean that it is safer. Nothing will happen that if you are keeping it within the country's boundaries. And why within the country's boundaries? Somebody may, even the private customer, this is not limited to the government customer, even the private customer can ask from the cloud service providers that my data should not go beyond my house premise, or it should not go from beyond my residence premises, or it should not go beyond district or any geographical boundaries or any boundaries you set. So customers are required to be empowered that they can define and they can exercise their choices. And the architecture should be built in a way that those choices are honored. So those are important. In many cases, people quote that they are being governed and they are being regulated. But if you go through those provisions in the Act or in the regulations, one will figure out that it is not the liability which they have to take care of the concerns of the customer. It is the protection. They are getting protected that no harm will be made to the service provider. Okay, that may be correct, but at the same time, they are supposed to take care of the customers. So how they are taking care of the customers, whether those provisions are there, those are being enforced, those are being monitored, you will find no, there are gaps. There are wide gaps that those are not being taken care of. And one more important point which was mentioned by previous speaker, and that is important from regulatory aspects, that cloud service providers enter into contracts or they are governed by different laws, and international law or law of other countries may also apply, who is providing the technology and who is providing the solutions. How to take care that other laws are not infringing and they may be harming the customer's concerns. So those are important. These are the aspects which are not only relevant from the government customers, these are also relevant from the perspective of a common consumer of cloud services. But how to determine or how to figure out or how to assess that market is functioning well? There is no data, there is no statistics available in public domain which is detailed enough and which is reliable enough through which you can do such assessments. So what is important is to put that data, to put that statistics in a public domain that common man or country can determine and can assess and can be sure that that market is functioning well, or if it is not functioning well, then where interventions are required. Before conclusion, just the most important point as far as next few years are concerned, so the future generation is concerned, is that cloud is no more cloud. Cloud is becoming a fog computing, or the cloud is pervasive. So telecom and cloud, it will be very difficult to differentiate or make a distinction that where is telecom and where is a cloud, because telecom functionalities or network functionalities will be consuming cloud architecture, 5G is adopting cloud native approach, and same time cloud services will be dependent upon telecom's performance. So those are mutually affecting each other. And when you set the quality of service requirements of or any performance requirements or any other obligations on telecom service providers, it means it cannot function, it cannot work if same thing is not applied to the underlying cloud network infrastructure provider on which they are dependent. So it will be almost impossible to compartmentalize or attribute the responsibilities in by partitioning or mapping to the individual players of cloud and telco. So they have to work together and serve the interests of the customers, and they have to be seen together. So in that case, it will be important that both telecom and cloud should be seen together. And initially, what has happened then, telcos, when they started adopting cloud architecture, they used to adopt lift and shift approach, and they couldn't take the best advantage of the cloud approach. But now they are rethinking and they are redesigning architectures and adopting a cloud native approach. So what is important is that as far as regulatory approach is concerned, it has to see both the things together. So what TRAI has recommended and to the DOT, and what is important, that there may be a regulatory continuum rather than binary approach that it is to be regulated or not to be regulated. So this chart shows that on one dimension there may be a self-regulation or a mandated regulation, and on the other that whether just rule making should be done or a strong stringent monitoring and enforcement should be done. So in this chart, this is taken from OECD, and if you will find that one approach or one extreme is that on the right top corner, where regulation is statutory and a state is enforcing those regulations, and another extreme is that bottom left side, where market is taking care of everything, no intervention and no regulation. But there may be a intermediate stages or where a spot can be put that it is a conditioned self-regulation or tacitly supported regulation, or there may be a mix, and it is a continuum where that dot should be put, whether it is clear or it will remain there. For that purpose, what TRAI has recommended that we should set up a industry body, and we should start working on more on transparency, that whatever we are doing, we should document that and present before the public, that even if something is interoperable among only few players, people should be aware that it is interoperable among only 3 or 4 players. And to what extent it is interoperable? It is interoperable to the limited part, or it is full interoperability. That should be known to the public, and they should be able to take informed choice. And if some interventions are required to be done, and so people should can raise their voice, and the players should take care of the concerns raised by the customers. So there should be an ecosystem which is hearing the voices of the customers, and they are taking care of, and whatever efforts they are doing, that is known to the public. So how to set up that ecosystem, that has been recommended as part of the TRAI recommendations, and it is very fluid and it adjusts itself to the right spot. So it is not fixing It is not fixing any particular location where it should be kept. So players can come together, and all other stakeholders can also join, and they can work together, and then optimum spot or a right spot where we should play, and how to change the location of that spot as we move ahead, or new things comes up, or new challenges emerges. So that flexibility is available in that ecosystem, and we expect that DOT will be working on that recommendations, and those aspects will be taken care of. So that's all from my side, and I'm ready to take the questions if those questions are raised just now or after the next presentation.
Thank you, sir. So thank you, sir, for very informative session by touching regulatory aspect in cloud services and interoperability in cloud computing. The questions and answer will be taken after this next session. So now we are moving forward to our last technical session, which is on telecom and cloud analytics use cases scenario by Shri Piyush Somani from ESDS Software Solution Limited. Mr. Piyush Somani is Managing Director and Chairman as ESDS Software Solution Limited. ESDS is a leader in offering cloud solution and advanced technologies. Mr. Piyush founded ESDS Software Solution when he was just 23 years old. But since then, he was successfully expanded this group to 19 nations across APEC, Europe, Middle East, America, and Africa. Now over to Mr. Piyush for his session.
Thank you, Mr. Siddharth. So I'll put up my presentation. So, yeah, I am also the current president of CCICI, and also the founder and chairman as briefed by Mr. Siddharth. Mr. Siddharth, I'm having some issues putting up my PPT.
Kindly share and then share the screen.
It is not allowing me to put my PPT.
It is allowed actually. Yes.
No, Mr. Piyush, on top right, there is an icon called share.
I've done that. Yeah.
So after doing that,
now it is work. Now it has worked. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, okay, yeah. Fine.
Thanks. Yeah. So my subject is interoperability and opportunities and challenges in cloud computing. We are also a cloud service provider. ESDS is a cloud service provider and also a data center company in India having multiple cloud patents. And then being the president of CCICI, so the challenges that we are encountering around interoperability. So I would like to bring the attention of all the panel members here today. Now, cloud interoperability, what are the so I would want to discuss about on the challenges which are there, the opportunities, and what can the benefits be for all the telecom companies if we do things right from here. So definitely there are certain very crucial benefits which all the telco companies can immediately reap out of interoperability, and that these are some of the benefits like the cloud to cloud traffic. If interoperability becomes a success, and if we are able to seamlessly move from one cloud service provider to another cloud service provider, what benefits will the telcos get? There would be a lot of traffic flowing from north to south, east to west, all directions you will see a lot of cloud traffic flowing through the telco networks, and all the telecom service providers would get benefited. Today, what is happening, because all the cloud service providers have created their own silos of cloud network, and they are not allowing customers to migrate out of their cloud to another cloud service provider. So because of that, they are making all the money. They are charging customers to migrate in or migrate out, but the telcos are not getting any benefit out of it. The telcos are only getting paid for that 100 Gbps or 200 Gbps, which each of the cloud service provider would be consuming in their data centers, in their cloud setup. But other benefits are not coming to the telcos. So cloud interoperability will help big time to the telcos. And then definitely the new workloads which would emerge out of the multi-cloud implementation. So with multi-cloud environment, because the flow that would happen from one cloud service provider to the other cloud service provider, it would give the boost, big time boost to multi-cloud environment, hybrid cloud environment, and that all would require the telcos. And then the people would reach out to telcos for lowest latency. So if you offer low latency to a service provider, you will get paid more. Today, latency is not a major factor. People come to a telco and say that, okay, I want a bandwidth, but they are not getting paid for offering lowest latency. So if a telco has to upgrade their network and deliver lower latency to the customers, are there any benefits for a telco for doing the same? Today, there are no benefits. So tomorrow, latency would become a very, very crucial factor. Volume versus the velocity. So definitely, as I mentioned, the latency would play a very, very crucial role. Tomorrow, when the autonomous vehicles would be on the road, autonomous drones would be flying in the sky, they will need to connect to the nearest edge data center. And to connect to that nearest edge data center and get real-time information, real-time artificial intelligence, all that happening in the real time, you will need lowest latency. And telcos in the future, maybe not immediately, but maybe a couple of years down the line, and I can very clearly say that 10 years down the line, each and every telco will get paid for providing low latency. Bandwidth, maybe 1 Gbps, 2 Gbps, 1 Tbps, all that would not be as important as the latency, because the decision making of the autonomous vehicles, all of that is going to be dependent on how fast they can communicate with the edge data centers. Today, there is another challenge that all the data centers are getting centralized into certain pockets. We can see that Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, they have become hub of data centers. But what is there in the northern parts? Or do we have enough data centers closer to our borders with Pakistan or closer to the borders with China? Tomorrow, all the drones that are going to fly over there, will they be able to connect to the nearest data center? So there are no data centers closer to these borders. So in the future, there is requirement for data centers closer to these borders. Another most important thing is data localization. So as we heard it from Mr. Asit also, so data localization also is going to play a very, very crucial role here. And we need to be very, very clear about what do we expect out of data localization. So I would also like to reiterate that just holding the data closer to your heart is not enough. You need to have a very, very clear understanding on where is my data, and are we doing proper audits of that data. SOC services, proper security of that data is very, very important. We have seen during the Russia-Ukraine war that the foreign cloud service providers, they have suspended services of companies in Russia. So something similar can happen to us also tomorrow if we are very much dependent on foreign cloud service provider. MeitY, which is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, they had initiated government community cloud, and a lot of basic things were done right at that time. But now in the pressure which has come on MeitY in last 2 to 3 years, so they have converted GCC into VPC. So they are saying that, okay, either you do a government community cloud, which is audited by STQC, where the data localization is mandatory. But that has been removed now, and people have been asked to shift to VPC, which is virtual private cloud. So the virtual private cloud doesn't reside in India. Most of the times the virtual private cloud will be outside India. We need to be very, very clear that all the hard work which was done for GCC, that hard work doesn't go waste. Each of the talukas in India, there are almost 7,000 talukas in India. In each and every district, almost there are more than 10 talukas, or you call them tehsils. They are there. And looking at 5G rollout, there would be a necessity of having one data center in each of the talukas. Without having a very strong presence of data centers all over India, we will not be able to see a proper rollout of 5G. The mistakes that have happened in rolling out 4G, those mistakes should not be done while rolling out 5G. 5G is going to be a huge opportunity for world's largest democracy. A major digital revolution will happen in a country, but only if you are able to target each and every taluka, each and every tehsil in India, and have a very strong data center in each and every tehsil in India. It should not, data centers don't need to be concentrated across Mumbai. There can be major repercussions in the future if all the data centers get concentrated at 3-4 cities in India. We need a strong backbone and distributed network across India. So are the telcos ready for this kind of a rollout? First thing which we need to ask ourselves is, for 5G rollout in India, is the system ready? Is the backbone network ready? So definitely the answer is no at the moment. Even if we want to roll out 5G, currently it can happen into some cities in India, the metros in India. It may not be possible in the other parts of the country, at least for next 4 to 5 years time. So to make it happen all over India, definitely this concept of having data centers across all the talukas is very, very important. And then you also need to create a very robust fiber network. At the moment, there is no interoperability between the telcos also. So the interoperability needs to be there, like London Internet Exchange links, which is there in the UK. All the telcos peer at that internet exchange. So there is a proper peering happening all over the UK between the service providers. They have an exchange in Manchester, they have an exchange in London. Similar to that, there need to be exchanges all over India, and those exchanges also need to be interconnected. Service providers should come up with models to earn money through the lowest latency that they offer, through the SLAs that they are offering. All those can be the new ways of earning more. But interconnectivity, interoperability between the service providers, ISPs, is a must. It's a compulsion. Moving forward, we need to come up with ways. There cannot be some few dozens of telcos dictating their terms, saying that, okay, this is not going to work, or our monopoly will end, our business model will get threatened if the network interfacing happens between all the telcos. So definitely this is something which is very, very important for us to consider. And imagine the traffic of the future, all the smart cities, all the smart cars, all the real-time analytics that is going to happen on digital video, on your video data. Real-time analytics happening on all the CCTV surveillance that is going to happen across all the cities. Real-time analytics on all the autonomous vehicles which would be on the road, and blockchain workloads, IoT workloads. India is rolling out world's largest IoT project. This is the smart metering project for 250 million smart meters. As of now, 2.5 to 3 million meters have gone live, but the government aspires to roll out 250 million smart meters, which is 25 crore smart meters over the next couple of years' time. Now, to make all that happen, we need a very, very robust backbone. All the telcos need to gear up for that kind of a network delivery. And looking at the current problem where the telcos are only making money on the speed, on the pipe size of the pipe, and nothing more than that is coming to the telcos. So I think so the billing models from the telcos will need to evolve very, very quickly. There is a it's a high time now. Telco service providers come up with new billing models, or else the future workloads, the digital transformation that is going to happen in this country. Currently, the country is somewhere around 700 megawatts of data center capacity. It is anticipated that over next 12 to 15 years time, this can go beyond 50 gigawatts of data center capacity. Somewhere between 50 gigawatt to 100 gigawatt would be the consumption of power by the data center because of all the new generation workloads. Now we are running some of these new generation workloads, and their power consumption, compute consumption, storage consumption is humongous. As I mentioned about the smart metering project, so India's largest Oracle database is running with us today for the smart metering project. So you can imagine once this 2.5 million, 3 million meters get upgraded to 250 million smart meters, what is the opportunity? Same way, all the autonomous vehicles, autonomous drones, all the blockchain workloads. Blockchain has become a reality now. Many banks have started implementing blockchain-based solutions. Government organizations are implementing blockchain-based solutions for land records and stamp, all the transactions that are happening, citizen requirements which are there. So the government organizations are implementing blockchain into their different projects. So blockchain is also a very heavy consumer of compute and bandwidth. So there's a massive opportunity there as well. So the telcos need to scale up very, very quickly, or else this dream of 5G may not be accomplished soon. Now, what are the challenges that we have in rolling out 5G implementation or the network automation? Now, we will need AI and ML. So there is definitely some investment which has to go into AI and ML implementation in network, because you need to bring a lot of smartness in the network. We need a smart network. We need a latency to be optimized real time. We need the speed to be optimized in real time. So all of that will require AI and ML. So telcos need to consider AI and ML very, very quickly. And we need to have India-specific standards, because at the moment, all the standards that we have, most of the standards that we are actually copying standards from other countries, or we are copying from some other geography which is not relevant to India. We need to quickly come up with our own standards. We need to come up with our own SOPs. So that is going to help the country big time. And definitely delivery has to be done at a speed. Problem with India has been that we have been very, very slow. When we come up with a idea, when we come up with a digital transformation solution, we take long time to deliver. It's just like our real estate industry, where the builders take long time to deliver a project. Same way, we also have been consuming a lot of time to bring necessary changes. Speed is must. We are lacking speed big time. Top 3 multi-cloud challenges which are there, that definitely 49% is security, and then 49% integrating data across clouds. So as I mentioned earlier, interoperability is very, very crucial. We will need to have proper brokers between clouds. We need to have 2 brokers between 2 cloud service providers. They should brokerage all the data flow from one cloud service provider to other cloud service provider, because tomorrow it should not be the case that, okay, all the data has gone on 2 or 3 cloud service providers, and now there is no way to come out of those cloud service provider. So we have been seeing that some of the government organizations in India, they went on one cloud service platform and they started using the DevOps environment of that cloud service provider, and now they don't know how to exit that DevOps environment. They cannot come out of that cloud environment because the entire organization is now used to doing their DevOps in a certain way. So interoperability between all the environments of all the cloud service providers is very, very important. And without proper interoperability, the cost management cannot be done properly. You will always end up paying more to a cloud service provider if there is no way to exit from one cloud service provider and go to another cloud service provider. And all the new challenges that we are facing now in the cloud world. So there are new security challenges coming up. All the time there is a pressure to upgrade your application, to upgrade your databases, because you cannot run any outdated applications on any of the cloud platforms. Earlier, when the workloads were running on premise, you could continue to run outdated applications because you were not exposed to the internet. But now everything is exposed to the internet. So security challenges, big time we have security challenges. And then data privacy will intensify complexity and need type of data management, text to non-text. So at the moment, majority of the data which is on the internet, which is flowing on the internet, more than 85% of that is video data. And in the future, this is going to be more than 90%, because the tech data that is going to be flowing, or the text data that is going to be flowing on the internet, would not be more than 10%. Majority of your data is going to be video. So it is very, very important to have all the network design, the entire security design to take care of the future workloads, the current workloads and the future workloads. And in interoperability, what is it? So demand scale disruption engine, and the maturity mobilizer, glorification engine. So we need to actually understand that what are the basic needs to have proper interoperability between all the cloud service providers, and how to migrate from on-premise environment to one public cloud. So definitely you need brokers, right? Brokerage firms which are there in place, who are going to help you from one public cloud to another public cloud, on-premise to public cloud, and hybrid cloud, multi-cloud adoption. So all of this is required big time for you to make interoperability successful. And can we continue to be there in the cloud world, or can we continue to have a smooth cloud adoption without interoperability? So there would definitely come a time when there would be a lot of disruption that would happen. There would be a lot of challenges that would be experienced if interoperability is not enforced, if we do not make it a reality. So thank you. That's it from my side. Any questions? I'll be more than happy to answer the questions from all the esteemed delegates here and the panelists.
Thank you, Somani ji, for delivering a very useful session covering challenges and opportunity involved in interoperability in cloud computing. Now we are moving towards our last session, which is related to question and answers. So participants are requested to raise question, to ask question by raising their hand or writing in chat box, and one by one their queries will be taken.
Mr. Atul Karelia and Shubham, they have raised hands. They can be allowed to speak.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. So during the presentation, you said that during this Ukraine event, the Russian data was blocked by some of that. It's really a big concern. So how that is going to be addressed in our country? Can you just elaborate on that part?
So see, like Russia never thought that there would be such a scenario where all their business data, banking data, everything would be on American cloud service providers or other European cloud service providers platform. They did not allow local cloud companies to grow. And then during the Russia-Ukraine war, when the war started, all the American cloud service providers simply shut down certain businesses. And now they are on mercy of the foreign cloud service provider. I'll just not name America or any European country or anything, but they are dependent on the cloud services provided by the enemy countries. And it is very, very important to actually have data localization. First thing is that ask the service providers to have the data locally. There is no reason why the data has to go outside India. Why there cannot be a government community cloud, or why there cannot be a banking community cloud, a telco community cloud, enterprise community cloud. And then you do proper audits. You physically verify the infrastructure. You physically verify the data in the country. I understand that the basic concept of cloud is that the data can be anywhere. But that's not the case anymore. We need to be concerned that my data cannot be anywhere. My data has to be, like Mr. Asit also mentioned in his presentation, if you don't make payment to a cloud service provider, your data can be deleted and the data cannot be retrieved again. So what are you going to do if that happens with you? What are you going to do tomorrow if there is a problem between India and Pakistan and some of the European countries who control our data, or maybe MasterCard, like MasterCard and Visa card, they suspended all their services in Russia. So no one can use their debit card, credit card. Now you don't have money in your bank at your home, and the money is there in the bank account, but you cannot use that money. You cannot actually go and transact with that money. So those are some of the challenges which we need to seriously think today, that if we don't fix these challenges today, under pressure of the foreign companies, we are changing everything. Under their pressure, we are agreeing to move from GCC to VPC. Under their pressure, we are saying that, okay, RuPay is not compulsory, Visa and MasterCard can also work. Everyone can work, but then there have to be certain standards, policies and SOPs of the country. Everyone has to follow those. Just because of the strong advocates that they hire, I had been part of one of the meetings in Delhi. And we were sitting over there, but the team of attorneys which came from a foreign company, they were so strong with their representation that the secretaries and everyone, they were speechless. They could not answer anything. They had to agree to what they were trying to get them to do. So that is something which is happening and which is disrupting and will create big issues for India tomorrow. We need to think over it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is to Mr. Satish Jamdagane. Is he here? Will he be here right now?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Yeah.
So when we talk about a gateway with government nodal body for transferring the data, as you had given the example of a UPI gateway, my question will be that, like, will it not give rise to data privacy concerns? So if the government is regulating the flow of data, then the access to data is entirely a click away for the government. On top of that, there have already been instances where lot of Aadhaar details were available in black market, and that caused a significant damage to the repute of data protection mechanisms which were in place for the UIDAI. And if we are going that level for using a government body for transferring the data, then the extent of damage it can cause would be so immense. So what do you think that at design level and at regulatory level, what do you think the ideal framework should be to address these issues?
So you give the example of Aadhaar card leak. I mean, I can give you 20 other examples of Sony data being leaked, Amazon data being leaked, all of Google data is out in the public in the dark web somewhere. See, this is you cannot hold that against the government because this is an evolving scenario, and I think the government has tightened the screws as far as those things are concerned. Data privacy concerns, if a government body owns a gateway, it doesn't come into the picture because the gateway is just a via media. He just translate data, he ensures security, and he lets the actual applications own the data. The actual data is with the cloud, the individual private or public cloud owners, and they all have to come together for a specific use case. In this case, one example would be smart city. So I don't believe any of those would be a concern, and it does not necessarily even have to be a government gateway. It can be a government authorized gateway, or they can be third party Indian owned gateway service providers, again subject to regulations as per the government body. So that's the way I visualize it. I don't see security as a concern or anything as a concern. It's subject to what we build into the protocols.
I want to add, Satish. May I add my comments?
Please.
Sandeep, yes. So the important point which has been raised by Shubham is that how to make system intelligent and at the same time privacy should be preserved. So these are not conflicting requirements. If you try to architect a solution or design something, both objectives can be achieved. So we need to work on a privacy preserving architecture. For learning or for knowing many things, you are not required to know the data in a raw form. That is not required to be collected. API gateways should not just be a data exchange gateways. There should be a learning framework through which you can preserve the privacy. How those are to be designed and how 5G or the 6G network are required to be designed, we should debate on that. That is possible.
So can I add? So the gateway architecture is a via media. The data ownership still lies with the individual enterprises or entities. Now, for example, if I do not want to share the data as is but want to obfuscate the nature of the data exchange, still want to convey information to the other side, so the other side of the gateway understands it, you can build such a functionality into the gateway.
Satish, my point is not just yes and no. So I am not saying that I will not share the data. It is that I will not take data. I will put up a question to you and you will answer that. How that you will apply on your data and how you will answer that. Those are the learning frameworks. How federated learning frameworks are to be introduced and privacy is to be preserved. So collecting data or having a provision of a data exchange is not good enough. We need to work more deeper and understand the other aspects and take care in our upcoming work items, what we may plan.
Okay, I mean, you're using terms federated learning and all this stuff. See, gateway functionality is data translation. If A wants to talk to B, you either be a translator, you just make them understand each other in a language.
It should not be. My point is that we should not limit to that only, because that is enabling to develop some intelligence, but it is not taking care of other aspects which are of very much concern to the customer.
Okay, I don't understand your question, but I leave it at that. Thank you.
So, other may come forward for question. Other questions are there. So, sir, so I think no more questions are there. So we should we conclude, sir?
If there are no further questions, we can close the webinar. It was a very informative and useful webinar. We had expert speakers from across the industry. I'm very
Sir, have a
thankful and
question. I have a
grateful to all
question.
of
Can I
them.
ask a question?
Pardon?
Sir, some Mr. Subendu is coming, I think.
Okay. Please go
Please
ahead.
ask.
Sir, a question is there where actually ma'am already took a session at the first half about she already gave some initiatives. She already illustrated that there are some initiatives have been taken by some empaneled CSPs for providing protective cloud services. But whether government issues any directives for use of any special infrastructure or any type of security process for EGM or GEM, for whether we can use any cloud services which will be hybrid or public, or for other services, whether there will be the server will be outside India, whether there is a special directives already has been issued or adopted by the government for EGM or GEM facility, GEM portal.
As madam is not there, Mr. Piyush,
Any other speakers
that
can
like comment?
answer it, give the answer. Will I repeat it once again?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, sir, I wanted to know whether government have issued any directives for use of any sort of public cloud or hybrid cloud or any type of cloud through EGM when we are going to do something else for any data center, say for any state data center or anything else where the endpoint requires some cloud services, whether government has issued any directives through empaneled CSPs or any sorts of means where we can use most secured manner, we can trust them, and the service providers should not be outside India. Whether the system already adapted or not, or in planning or any type of planning or anything.
Actually, MeitY had initiated this in 2016. They had come up with a list also. They got people empaneled, but with time, all of that has got diluted. The thought process was that there has to be a government
At present, whether there is any adopted, already the policy has been adopted or not, at present, right now.
So what was adopted has got diluted now. That is what I am trying to explain. That earlier there was a compulsion to have a government community cloud, and that would be audited by STQC. All the security and everything was verified by STQC, and then proper certain audits and everything had to be done on that. But now after that, that has been converted into VPC, which is virtual private cloud. That mandate is not there. So it is not compulsory anymore. Anyone can go on a VPC, and that VPC can be outside India. It can be anywhere in the world. And there is no compulsion of any kind of audits, no certain audits, no STQC audits, nothing on that data. So on that particular environment.
So certainly there will be a big security issue right now. So then, right now, if you want to adopt some policies.
Correct. So at the moment,
especially for data centers, for state data centers or data center.
Correct. So CERTIN does a very good job actually. If we see all the if we see STQC or CERTIN, all the government bodies which are there to protect the data or to actually audit the data, they have been doing a good job. But we have ourselves diluted that now. There is no compulsion to use any of those agencies anymore. So that is going to create problem in the long run, because slowly what will happen? People will go to VPC, people will go to foreign cloud, and a lot of government data will go on foreign cloud, and then you will have challenges in the future.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So this forum has a way out to reach to the government to give a flagship actually knowledge or something else, advice to do the needful at the earliest. I think so.
Correct. So they need to be sensitized that what is happening in the background now, and all the pressure which is coming on the government from the foreign agencies. No, they don't need to budge to that pressure. Certain things you need to be very firm that we will not change. When you initiated something good, and there was a lot of effort put by so many good bureaucrats at that point of time. So the new generation bureaucrats need to handle that pressure. whatever pressure is coming from the foreign companies, we need to deal with that pressure and not change our policies.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. There is one example for the drone policies also. Recently, the drone policies have been amended by the government, and there is a big security concerns right now.
Exactly, yeah. And that is very unfortunate. We change laws, we change policies, we change processes, we change everything very quickly under pressure of strong attorneys of foreign companies.
Okay. So, so I think there are no more questions. So with this, we have come to the end of today's webinar on interoperability in cloud computing, opportunity and challenges. I would like to thank our guest speaker for engaging us in insightful and informative sessions. Our speaker well articulated the various aspects of cloud computing, such as standardization, cloud computing framework in India, regulatory aspect, etc., and interoperability in cloud computing. I'm sure the participant would be benefited with these wonderful presentation. I would like to thank member T. Sri A.K. Tiwari sir for inaugurating the webinar and grace the occasion. Our special thanks to DG and Head of NTI PRIT Sri U.K. Srivastav sir for his guidance and support for conducting this webinar. I also thank to other officers of NTI PRIT for their support for smooth conduction of the webinar. Last but not the least, I thank all participants for joining today's webinar and making this webinar a success. I would like to have your continuous participation in various future initiatives of NTI as well. Now, with permission of DG sir and DDG sir, we may close the session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. We can close the webinar, please. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sandeep ji.